Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into the life and presidency of, well, a truly pivotal figure, Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States.
And our main source for this is the Wikipedia page dedicated to him, which is incredibly detailed.
It really is. What's striking is just how broad it is, right? It covers everything cradled to, well, almost the present day. His early life, career, the presidency, post-presidency. It's all there.
Yeah, a massive overview. You could spend days just on that one page.
Exactly. And that's kind of our mission today. We're going to sift through all that information, pull out the really interesting bits, the key moments and insights.
Sort of a shortcut, yeah. Helping you get the essentials on Barack Obama without getting totally bogged down.
Precisely. Your curated guide to the things that really defined his journey and his time in office. Okay, so let's jump in. Where do we start?
Well, the beginning, I suppose. Barack Hussein Obama II, born August 4th, 1961, in Honolulu, Hawaii.
And right there, that's interesting. He's the only president born outside the contiguous 48 states.
Yeah, sets him apart immediately. It sort of hints at a life that wasn't going to be entirely conventional.
And his family background really reinforces that, doesn't it? His mother, Ann Dunham, American, but with this really diverse European heritage, English, Welsh, German, Swiss, Irish.
And there's even that potential link tracing back possibly to John Punch, an enslaved African man in the 17th century. It's quite a lineage.
It really speaks to the complex tapestry of American history. And then his father, Barack Obama Sr., from Kenya.
Right, came over on a scholarship. They met in Hawaii, apparently in a Russian language class, of all places.
Wow. Talk about different worlds colliding. That must have shaped him profoundly.
Absolutely. A truly global starting point. But he didn't spend all his early years in Hawaii.
No, that's right. At age 6, he moved to Indonesia. His mother had remarried. What was that period like?
Well, he attended local Indonesian language schools for a few years, apparently became fluent as a kid.
Fluent in Indonesian. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and there was that brief period where he was registered as Barry Satoro and somehow mistakenly listed as Indonesian and Muslim on a school form.
Details that later got twisted into those unfounded theories and rumors.
Exactly. But that early immersion in a completely different culture, you have to think that significantly shaped his perspective.
Oh, for sure. Living abroad like that, so young. Then he came back to Honolulu for his teenage years.
And he's talked about how that multicultural setting in Hawaii was really key to his worldview.
And this is where he's been surprisingly open about, well, his youth. He's discussed using alcohol, marijuana, even cocaine.
Right, the whole Choom Gang thing, known for smoking marijuana. It's pretty unusual for a president to be that candid about teenage experimentation.
It really is. Why do you think he was so open about it? Authenticity?
Maybe. Or just acknowledging that, people have complicated pasts. It definitely adds another dimension to him, a departure from the usual polished political image.
Definitely. Okay, what about his religious upbringing? Or lack there initially?
Right. He wasn't raised in a religious household. His mother was described as more of a secular humanist, his father an atheist, stepfather not religious either.
So how did he come to embrace Christianity later?
It seems that came largely through his work as a community organizer in Chicago. He worked very closely with black churches there.
So it's through that community engagement.
Yeah, those relationships and experiences apparently led him to Protestant Christianity as an adult.
And it's interesting, that collection of religious items, he reportedly keeps rosary beads from the Pope, a Henneman figure, a Coptic cross, Buddha, even a poker chip.
Right. It suggests a real openness, maybe seeing common threads in different spiritual paths. The poker chip is a curious touch, though. A personal memento, perhaps.
Maybe. Okay, moving on to education and his early career. He clearly excelled academically.
No question. Becoming the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review, that's a huge achievement.
Immense. It signals serious intellectual firepower and leadership potential, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And after Harvard, his path wasn't straight into corporate law or anything. Community organizer in Chicago, civil rights law, teaching constitutional law.
Yeah, the University of Chicago Law School. Always seems geared towards public service and social justice issues.
Definitely seems that way, though his first big political jump wasn't immediately successful.
Right, that run for the U.S. House in 2000. He lost that one.
But he had served and continued to serve in the Illinois State Senate before and after that, from 97 to 2004.
And what was his focus there?
Things like racial profiling, the death penalty, ethics reform, working on substantive legislation.
So getting that hands-on experience in state-level politics. Learning the ropes, building connections.
Exactly. Essential grounding, you'd imagine, for what came next.
Which brings us to the presidential stage.
Yeah, the 2008 election. Just, wow. A truly historic moment.
Absolutely. The first African-American president. The whole campaign built around that theme of change. It was electric. You remember the primaries, the convention speech, the debates, and that Obama coalition that came together.
It was incredibly broad, wasn't it? Young voters, African Americans, suburbanites, independents. He really managed to energize a diverse group.
A powerful combination. And then 4 years later, 2012, re-election.
Yep. Another round of primaries, conventions, debates, successfully defending his record.
What was the key dynamic in 2012, do you think? More of a referendum on his first term?
Largely, yes, especially focused on the economy, the recovery after the crash. His campaign was effective at mobilizing that coalition again and framing the choice for voters.
Okay, so let's shift into the presidency itself, 2009 to 2017. Those first 100 days always get a lot of focus.
Right. And he came in with executive orders pretty quickly, plans for Iraq troop withdrawal, trying to close Guantanamo Bay.
But Congress blocked the funding for Guantanamo closure, didn't they?
They did. Big hurdle there. But he also moved to reduce secrecy around presidential records, reverse the Mexico City policy on foreign aid and abortion counseling.
Signaling some clear breaks from the previous administration right out of the gate.
Definitely. On the domestic front, early on, there was key legislation like the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act.
Right, addressing wage discrimination and reauthorizing SEIP, the state children's health insurance program.
Yeah, expanding kids' health care access, plus overturning those Bush-era limits on embryonic stem cell research funding.
Which was big news in the scientific community. Actions focused on equity and science.
Seems so. And then the Supreme Court appointments. Huge impact there.
Sonia Sotomayor, the first Hispanic justice.
And Elena Kagan, which meant 3 women on the court for the first time ever with Justice Ginsburg.
A significant shift in the court's composition. He also launched specific initiatives for women and girls.
The White House Council on Women and Girls and that task force on protecting students from sexual assault, trying to tackle gender equality and safety issues head on.
Okay, what about immigration during his term?
Well, his administration started the Priority Enforcement Program, PEP, and continued Secure Communities. The idea was to focus deportation efforts on criminals or security threats.
But those policies were pretty controversial, right?
Yeah.
Lots of debate.
Definitely. Generated a lot of pushback and discussion. Then there's space policy.
Yeah, he shifted NASA's direction a bit.
Right. Moved away from the Bush plan to return to the moon, focused more on Earth science, developing new rockets, and looking longer term towards Mars.
A different vision for space exploration. Surveillance was another big area.
Huge. He renewed parts of the Patriot Act, expanded some surveillance programs, and then the Snowden leaks happened.
Right, that blew everything wide open. Massive debate about privacy versus security.
Yeah, and Obama himself ended up calling for reforms after those disclosures. A really complex issue.
And race relations, obviously a central theme given his presidency. But it wasn't simple.
Not at all. His election was symbolic, but events like Trayvon Martin's killing, Ferguson after Michael Brown's death, they highlighted how deep the tensions still were.
And that really fueled the Black Lives Matter movement. How did he navigate that?
It seemed to evolve, maybe initially more cautious, but later spoke more directly about racial disparities and the justice system. It was a tightrope walk.
Another evolution was his stance on same-sex marriage.
Yeah, that was significant. He initially supported civil unions, but in 2012, he publicly came out in favor of full marriage equality.
A major moment, reflecting shifting public opinion, too. And his administration argued for it at the Supreme Court.
They did. Okay, let's talk economy. He came into office facing an absolute crisis.
The worst since the Great Depression. So the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the stimulus package, was signed very early.
Right. A massive injection of funds trying to stop the bleeding, and then the auto industry bailouts. GM and Chrysler.
Super controversial at the time. What was the thinking there?
Basically preventing a total collapse. The argument was they were too big to fail, the ripple effects on jobs and the economy would be catastrophic.
Right. And we saw the Budget Control Act later on, amid all the debt ceiling fights.
And while unemployment was high initially, it did steadily decrease over his 2 terms. GDP started growing again.
He also compromised on extending some Bush-era tax cuts for a while and really started talking about income inequality as a defining challenge.
Yeah, that became a major theme later in his presidency. Shifting to the environment, the BP oil spill was a huge event.
Oh, man, the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf. How did the administration respond?
Temporary halt on new deepwater drilling permits, more oversight. Later, some bans were lifted, but he also expressed reservations about the Keystone XL pipeline.
And ultimately vetoed its authorization, right?
Correct. And towards the end, he permanently banned new offshore drilling in large parts of the Atlantic and Arctic, plus a big focus on conservation, creating or expanding lots of national monuments.
And then the big one on the domestic side,
Yeah.
the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare.
Yeah, you really can't overstate its significance. A massive overhaul aiming to expand health insurance coverage,
Faced incredible opposition, legal challenges all the way to the Supreme Court.
which ultimately upheld the core of it, the individual mandate, under Congress's taxing power.
What's its lasting impact, do you think?
Well, it definitely reduced the uninsured rate significantly. Millions more people got coverage, but it also sparked endless debates about costs, access, government involvement. It fundamentally changed the healthcare conversation in the U.S.
Okay, let's pivot to foreign policy. Drone strikes became a much more prominent tool under Obama.
Yes, significantly increased use, particularly in Pakistan and Yemen, and that led to controversy, especially the killing of Anwar al-Awlaki.
Right, an American citizen killed by a U.S. drone strike in Yemen without trial raised huge legal and ethical questions about due process.
Absolutely. Also in Yemen, the administration supported the Saudi-led intervention against Houthi rebels.
But later paused some arms sales because of civilian casualties, yeah.
That's right. Relations with China had their moments, like that reported snub at the G20 summit in 2016. Minor incident maybe, but noted.
Iraq, he followed through on ending combat operations and withdrawing troops by the end of 2011.
Fulfilling a major campaign promise, although troops later went back in smaller numbers to counter the rise of ISIL.
Right, the situation shifted, and Afghanistan and Pakistan remained incredibly complex.
He initially increased troop levels in Afghanistan, the surge, but later began drawing them down. Still, planned for a longer-term presence due to the instability.
A really significant diplomatic move was the opening with Cuba, the Cuban thaw.
Yeah, after decades of frozen relations, secret talks, prisoner swaps, reopening embassies, that Castro handshake, a major shift.
On Israel and Palestine, it was complicated too. Continued strong military ties with Israel.
But also public friction over Israeli settlement building in the West Bank. He maintained support for a two-state solution.
And the relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu was often described as pretty strained, right?
Yeah.
Especially over the Iran deal.
Yes, and later the UN resolution condemning settlements, which the U.S. abstained on, allowing it to pass. That caused a real firestorm.
Then there was Libya in 2011, the intervention.
Right, participating in that multinational military action to protect civilians from Gaddafi's forces, authorized under a UN mandate.
But the aftermath, the planning for what came next in Libya, has drawn a lot of criticism. Obama himself acknowledged shortcomings there.
He did. Syria, another incredibly difficult situation. The civil war raging.
He called for Assad to step aside, authorized some programs to train rebels, though one famously failed.
And ultimately pulled back from direct military strikes over chemical weapons use, opting for a diplomatic deal with Russia to remove them, though later authorized airstrikes against ISIL in Syria.
A very complex series of decisions. And the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA.
Probably the signature foreign policy achievement, but also maybe the most controversial, lifting sanctions in return for limits on Iran's nuclear program.
Faced massive opposition domestically and from allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia. And apparently at the same time, the U.S. was undertaking a major nuclear arms modernization program.
Right. That detail often gets overlooked. Finally, relations with Russia. Started with hopes for a reset, achieved the New START treaty on arms control.
But then things went downhill fast. Ukraine, Crimea, Syria.
Yeah, relations really soured. And then the interference in the 2016 election. There was criticism that maybe Obama didn't push back hard enough against Putin earlier on.
His overall image, though, culturally and politically, he was a phenomenon.
Undeniably. Challenged so many ideas about race and politics. His oratory skills were exceptional.
Just captivating speeches.
Yeah.
And he used new media really effectively, those weekly video addresses.
Yeah, connecting directly. And even that thanks Obama meme, it started sincerely, became sarcastic, and then he kind of embraced the joke himself.
Shows a certain awareness, I guess. So what about since he left office in 2017?
He's been busy, wrote the memoir A Promised Land, did that podcast with Bruce Springsteen.
Renegades,
Yeah.
right? And his production company, Higher Ground.
Yeah, producing films and TV. Won an Emmy for the documentary series Our Great National Parks.
He's popped back into the political sphere occasionally, too. Celebrated the ACA anniversary at the White House.
Spoke out against the idea of expanding the Supreme Court, done speaking tours, some paid ones like in Australia.
And commented on current events, like the Gaza war, urging Israel to dismantle Hamas, but warning about civilian costs.
Right. And there were reports, about him privately expressing concerns over Biden's re-election chances, and he campaigned for Kamala Harris. Still involved, just differently.
So looking back at the whole picture, the legacy, how's it shaping up?
Well, he's widely seen as a brilliant campaigner, a truly gifted orator. Policy-wise, the stimulus, Dodd-Frank financial reform, and definitely the ACA are often cited as major successes.
Though assessments on how well he built up the Democratic Party itself are more mixed.
True. But the ACA, that's generally seen as the cornerstone achievement, a fundamental change to healthcare. He's also credited with helping steer the economy away from a potential depression after the 2008 crisis.
And on social issues, signing the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. Big steps on LGBT rights, too.
Repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell, ending the ban on transgender service members serving openly, those were significant changes.
On the other hand, the huge increase in drone strikes is a key part of his foreign policy legacy.
Definitely a major point of criticism and debate, though the federal prison population did see a decline during his terms.
He left office pretty popular, right? 60% approval rating.
Yeah, quite high. And his presidential center is being built in Chicago now. Plus, the awards the Nobel Peace Prize early on, Time Person of the Year twice.
And NAACP Image Awards, too, for his writing even before the presidency.
So yeah, that's the sweep from the Wikipedia page, pretty much. A
Right.
huge amount of ground covered.
It really is. We've gone from his unique background in Hawaii and Indonesia, through the landmark legislation, the tough foreign policy calls, right up to his post-presidency and legacy. Hopefully that gives everyone a clearer picture of the key aspects.
A whirlwind tour, but hitting the main points documented there.
So that brings us to our final thought for you, the listener. Considering everything we've touched on, the economic crisis he inherited, reshaping healthcare, dealing with complex social issues, navigating a volatile world stage, what single aspect of Barack Obama's presidency do you think will have the most lasting impact?
Yeah, what stands out most to you? What's the biggest ripple effect, positive or negative, looking back now? And what questions does this deep dive make you want to explore further?
Something to chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.